Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very warm welcome to this Monday, 26th June 2023 morning Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. Today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 8, Questions of King Parīkṣit. Before we discuss on this verse, let's sing Jai Radha Madhav. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotra Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu Krishne Materastu Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 29. Yadyat parīkṣid ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Yadyat parīkṣid ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati anupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Yadyat parīkṣid ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. Word by word. Yat whatsoever, Parīkṣit the king, ṛṣabhaḥ the best, Pāṇḍūnām in the dynasty of Pāṇḍu, anupṛcchati goes on inquiring, ānupūrvyeṇa the beginning to the end, tat all those, sarvam fully, ākyātum to describe, upacakrame he just prepared himself. Translation: he also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parīkṣit had inquired from him. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the best in the dynasty of the Pāṇḍus, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Mahārāja Parīkṣit asked many questions, some of them very curiously, to know things as they are. But it is not necessary for the master to answer them in the order of the disciples' inquiries, one after other. But Shukadeva Goswami, experienced teacher that he was, answered all the questions in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession, and he answered all of them without exception. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, 8th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Questions by King Parīkṣit. Before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Ajnānatimirandhasya Jnānāñjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Shreshtam Manamapi Shachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandastranam Dante Damyacha Punah Punah Shriman Rupa Padambhojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 8, The Questions of King Parīkṣit. Text 29. Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parīkṣit had inquired from him. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the best in the dynasty of the Pāṇḍūs, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. In this verse, we can understand that Mahārāja Parīkṣit had asked many questions in the previous verses, and this verse is concluding all the questions that were asked by Srila Parīkṣit Maharaj. So, the beginning of this verse, it says, Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ. Whatsoever the King Parīkṣit, the best. ṛṣabhaḥ is translated as the best. So, here Mahārāja Parīkṣit is in the category of Rajarshi. Imam Rajarshayo Vidu. Imam Vivasvate Yogan Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manve Pravaha Manur Akshāvake Bravit Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Vidu Sakalene Hamata Yogo Nashtaha Parantapa. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of transcendental discussion of Krishna, the topics spoken by Krishna, which is Śrīmad-Bhāgavad-Gīta, and the topics about Krishna, where Krishna also speaks, which is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, everything related to Krishna, it is transcendental. It has nothing to do with any kind of material topics. Yat katha Krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidati. Mune sadhu prushtoham bhavadbhir loka mangalam yat Krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidati. So this is mentioned by Srila Suta Goswami to the sages assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So Shaunaka Rishi asks the questions about Krishna to Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami says that this is the topic that should be discussed always. Munaya sadhu prishtobhyam. So this is the right questions to ask, because yat krita Krishna samprashno yen atma samprasidati bhavadbhir loka mangalam. So the questions, the discussions of Krishna, about Krishna, spoken by Krishna, of Krishna and his devotees, what it brings in is loka mangalam. It brings in auspiciousness across the whole universe. Bhavadbhir loka mangalam yat krita Krishna samprashna. So whatever we are asking about topics related to Krishna, that brings in yen atma samprasidati. That brings in unlimited bliss. to oneself. So here we see in this particular chapter, the chapter 8, questions of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. The Parīkṣit Maharaj has asked many questions in this verse. And all those questions are related in terms of understanding our eternal relationship with Krishna. Because that is what is the basis of all the creation. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva yenishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahadhyonir aham bija pradapita. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that of all the types of living entities that exists, Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavantiya tasam brahma mahadhyonir. The material nature is the mother, aham bija pradapita. And Krishna is the seed-giving father. So all the living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, directly the children of Krishna. So in that sense, Krishna is present with the living entities in his Paramatma form as well. Upadrashta anumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramatmiti cha apyukto dehesmin purusha para. So Krishna is present in the form of localized Paramatma, and he is overseeing the activities of each and every living entity, and he is permitting. Upadrashta anumanta cha bharta, he is maintaining. Bhokta, he is the actual enjoyer. So it's really important to understand that whatever so-called enjoyment we are getting through the senses, the actual enjoyer is Krishna. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhradam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim ṛṣabhaḥ. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita what is the formula for real peace. Shantim ṛṣabhaḥ, shanti. So how does one get shanti, peace? When one knows three things. The first thing is that Krishna is the actual enjoyer of yajna and tapasa, of all the penances and austerities that one performs and all the sacrifices that one performs. Yagnishishta shinasanto muchyante sarvakilbishai bhunjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. Yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. So as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that when one is trying to enjoy the senses without first offering it any enjoyment to Lord Krishna, one is actually bhunjate te tvagam papa. Unfortunately, one is taking sinful reactions. So one of the greatest benefits of offering something to Lord Krishna is not only that we become totally satisfied when anything is offered to Krishna, because our original, so as we know, there is something that because of which we are alive. So when that something has gone out, is not present, we become dead. So that is, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, na jayate murete va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va anubhuya ajo nityam shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire. So that we are something natva evaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayah taparam. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, there was never a time when all these kings did not exist. There is never, so in the present we know that we are existing, and there will be never a time in future when they will not cease to exist. Sarve vayah atah param. So the existence is eternal, but this the body is temporary, because there is janma mrityu jara vyadhi. So the body takes birth, and because of birth there is death, and between birth and death there is disease and old age. So this is the body. The body is transient, but the transientness of body, or the temporary nature of body, is perceived because there is something that is eternal within us. That's why we are able to perceive the temporary. So there is, if we look at this world, it is dvandva, it is duality. Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sangyer gachyantya mudha padam avyayam tat. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, who reaches the padam avyayam. Padam tad vishnoho paramam padam sada pashyanti suraya. So the demigods, or the people who have always surrendered onto Krishna, they always see the transcendental realm of Krishna. So this is the transcendental position of someone who has surrendered themselves to Krishna. There is, it is mentioned, Salokya Sarupya Sayujya Sarshti Diyamanam na grananti vina mat sevanam jana. So it is mentioned by Kapila Deva in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that the pure devotee of Krishna is only interested in serving Krishna. It is not dependent on the service of the pure devotee is not dependent on anything else. It is only dependent on service. So this is ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. It is costless. So the love for Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabonai. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Koroy Udai. That is, as it is mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this eternal love for Krishna, it's not something that is external to us, something that needs to be attained. It is already within us. So the process of, that's why it is called self-realization, God realization. Because it's already present, we just need to realize it, that it is present. And this is the transcendental nature of our existence. A person might be in the worst state of existence externally, but internally, everyone is pure. And this is the transcendental position of existence in this material world. So, therefore, a person who is pure devotee of Krishna, they would see that everyone is serving Krishna. This is the transcendental position of someone who is surrendered onto Krishna. So it is said about such a person that they are yadyad vibhuti mat sattvam Śrīmad urjita sambhavam tatta devava gachatvam mama tejo amsha sambhava. So Krishna actually mentions about rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi sureyo pranavas sarva vedeshu shabdam khe parusham nrishu. So Krishna mentions how he is present in every aspect of our existence. Like he says that he is a taste in water, rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi sureyo. He is the light that is coming from the sun and the moon. Pranavas sarva vedeshu. He is the Omkara mantra. So all the mantras, Vedic mantras, start with Om. And Krishna says that he is the Pranava. Pranavas sarva vedeshu shabdam khe. Krishna mentions that he is the voice, any kind of sound that comes in the ether. That is him. So whatever sound that comes, it is Krishna. Of course, when we directly hear the names of Krishna, then it transcends all the other kinds of sounds, and it brings us into direct connection with Krishna. So this is the wonderful nature of devotional service. Bhakti para isha anubhava viraktir anyatyasya esha trisha ekakala prapadya manasi yadashnutasyu tushti pushti kshudapaya nugasham. So this is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that when one has got loving devotional service for Krishna, that loving devotional service and para isha anubhava, the experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and viraktir anyatra syat, and automatically being totally detached from everything else. all these three things happen simultaneously. Bhakti, Parayisha Anubhava, Virakti Ranyatra Syat, Esha Trisha Ekakala. Simultaneously, these three things happen. And the example given is Prapadya Manasya. How does this happen? Because one is surrendered onto Krishna. Because of surrender, there is the love for the Lord, there is the experience of the Lord, and there is detachment from everything else. Bhakti Parayisha Anubhava Virakti Ranyatra Syat Esha Trisha Ekakala Prapadya Manasya Yad Ashritasya Tushti Pushti Kshudapaya Anugasham. So the example given is when one is having food, automatically there is Tushti, Pushti, and Kshudapaya. So Tushti is satisfaction, Pushti is nourishment, and Kshudapaya is that one's hunger is getting over. So one is getting totally satisfied, one is nourished, and one is not hungry at all. When one is having food, all these three things happen at the same time. Similarly, when one is surrendered onto Krishna, the love for the Lord, the experience of the Lord, and detachment from everything that is not directly related to Lord, all three things happen at the same time. So this is the transcendental position of asking and hearing about Krishna. So this is what is mentioned in this verse. Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati. So Parīkṣit has been addressed as ṛṣabhaḥ. So this is, as we said, Rajarshi. So Parīkṣit Maharaj has got the qualities of both Raja and Rishi, of both emperor and a saint. And this is the transcendental position of someone who is surrendered onto Krishna. So that is the real, one can be the best king if one works with a sense of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the goal of human form of life. Nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvateritam puman bhavat taret sa atma. So it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that this human form of life, nrideham adyam, sulabham sudurlabham. In this human form of life, one can achieve the greatest goal that is available. And that greatest goal is to render loving devotional service to Krishna. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschashmi tatvata tato mam tatoto gyatva vishate tadanantaram. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that through loving devotional service, one can know me. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvata. Then one can know Krishna in truth. Tato mam tatoto gyatva. So when one knows Krishna in truth, what happens? Vishate tadanantaram. One goes back home, back to Godhead. So this is the transcendental position of loving devotional service. And the loving devotional service, it transcends the four purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So therefore, prema pumartho mahan. This is mentioned about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanaya Tad Dhamam Vrindavanam. So it is mentioned that the real worshipable Lord is the son of Nanda Maharaj, Brajesha Tanaya. Tad Dhamam Vrindavanam. And his abode is Vrindavan. So there is Goloka Vrindavan and there is Bhaumya Vrindavan. So the replica of the transcendental spiritual world of Goloka Vrindavana is replicated in Bhaumya Vrindavana, in the material world, in Vrindavan. So Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuto Govinda Madipurusham tamaham bhajami. This is Aradhanam Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanaya Tad Dhamam Vrindavanam Ramya Kachid Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Kalpita. So actual way of worshipping Krishna is the way the gopis worship Krishna. So the gopis are constantly thinking about Krishna. That Krishna is doing this at this moment, Krishna is doing that at that moment. So every moment passes only in remembrance of Krishna. That is the pure attachment of gopis for Krishna. We actually see this in one of the stories as well, that gopis, their only goal was to love Krishna and to make Krishna happy. So they did not have any other goal in their life. So whatever else they were doing as householders, it was everything was being done very nicely. As householders, the gopis were taking care of their family very nicely, but their minds were always fixed on Krishna. Savai manah Krishna padaravindayo. Vachamsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane karau harer mandiram arjanadishu shrutim chakara achyuta satkatodaya. It is mentioned about Kulashekar Alvar, how his mind was always fixed on Krishna, and his words were always talking about Krishna. Vachamsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane karau harer mandiram arjanadishu. His hands were always cleaning the temples of Krishna. Shrutim chakara achyuta satkatodaya. He was always hearing about Krishna. So Mukunda Lingale Darshane Drishau Karau Shrute, so Granam Chatatpada Saroja Saurabhe Śrīmad Tulasyam Rasanam Tadarpite. So all this is mentioned. So whatever senses was there, senses and the mind, everything was engaged in the service of Krishna. So that is real devotional service. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktirochyate. As it is said by Narada Muni, Sarva Upadhi Vinirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktirochyate. So when one gives up all the designations, immediately when one is taking birth in this material world, there are different designations that one takes on. So designation of that I am the son or daughter of so-and-so, that I'm born in the country, so I'm a citizen of this country. So there are so many designations that immediately one gets when one has the body. So the first step in spiritual realization is to give up all those designations. Sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. What happens when one gives up all the designations? The only designation then that exists is Jivera Swarupaya Krishnera Nityadas. That the original Swarupa, the original form of all the living entities, is that they are eternally in servitude of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So that is the only designation. All the other designations are temporary. They are constantly changing. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, he gives the example of Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinanti naroparani tatha shariraya vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that just like a person takes off the old cloth and puts on a new cloth, similarly, the living entity gives up the old body and puts on a new body. So this is Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantaram prapti dhiras tatra na mohyati. So as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that because there is proprietor of the body, the Dehi, within the body, asmin dehe, Dehinosmin yatha dehe. And because there is proprietor of the body, there is kaumaram, yavanam and jara. There is childhood, youth and old age. The progression of life is taking place because there is proprietor of the body within the body. Yeah. And this proprietor of the body, Dehi, is eternal. It is not that. So this is Ajo Nityam Shashvatoyam Purana. So as it is mentioned, it is unborn. So the body gets born, and therefore we have got the date of birth, which is celebrated as birthday, and the body dies, and because there is birth, there is death. So this duality happens because we are living in the realm of duality. So the material world is a realm of duality, dvandva. And therefore, that quality of being in the spiritual world is dvandvair vimukta. So when one is free from duality, one is in the spiritual world. How does one become free from duality? When one becomes free from duality, when one understands that that it's basically the two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. So if we say there is day, then immediately there should be night. If we say there is life, then immediately there should be death. If we say that there is happiness, then immediately there should be distress. So, but the biggest challenge in our existence is that we consider the things that gives us happiness. We get attached to the things that gives us happiness, and we want to run away from the things that gives us unhappiness. But the nature of existence in duality is such that one cannot exist without the other. And that is the basis of understanding and living in this material world. That one has to be nirmana moha, without being proud of anything and without getting attached to anything. Jita sanga dosha. One is not overly attached to anything. Adhyatma nitya. One is constantly understanding one's original nature as eternal part and parcel of Krishna. Vinivritta kama. One is not being passionate about sense enjoyment. Then dvandvair vimukta. One is free from the dualities of material existence. Sukha dukkha sangye. That is another important aspect, that one has got the equanimity of mind in either happiness or distress. So this is sukha dukkha same kritva labha labha jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsisi. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that to Arjuna, that he says that sukha dukkha same kritva, either in happiness or in distress, if one has got that equanimity of mind, labha labha jaya jayo, either in profit or in loss, either in victory or in defeat, if one has got that equanimity of mind, tato yuddhaya yujyasva, then one can engage in whatever activity one is being engaged in. Naivam papam avapsisi. One does not get the sinful reactions if one is acting in that way, because this is the so one engages in the karma kanda, the fruitive activities, with the expectation of getting favorable life, not only in the present moment and in the present life, but also in the afterlife. One wants to get promoted to the heavenly planets, so that more enjoyment is available there. And the whole concept of karma kanda, or the engagement in fruitive activities, is that one is thinking from the perspective of sense enjoyment only. That whatever body I have got in this life, in this moment, and whatever bodies I'm going to get in the future life, I can have maximum enjoyment and minimum unhappiness in that body. So when one thinks in that way, in the karma kanda or the fruitive activities way, the disadvantage of that is that all the activities are bearing results. So if someone is very cautious of not doing any bad activities and always doing good activities, so that one gets good results, and then not only in this life but in the next lives, what one is forgetting is that every activity not only gives the good results that one wants, but it has also traces of bad results. So the bad results are related to inadvertently doing something that is causing harm. One might be really very cautious not to do any harm consciously, but unconsciously, sometimes one might be doing that. And in that way, all the activities are bringing back results. So therefore, Krishna says, Yajñārtha karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that all the activities have to be performed for Yajna Purusha. That is the Yajna Purusha is Krishna. Yajño vai Vishnu. So Vishnu is Yajna Purusha. So when one performs with an attitude of giving all the results to Krishna, whether it be good or bad, immediately one is coming out of this cycle of birth and death. Because the whole cycle of birth and death is based on the sense enjoyment, the aspects of sense enjoyment. So whatever is I find that is giving me happiness to my senses, I will keep doing it more. And whatever is giving my senses feeling of discomfort, I'll keep doing it less. But actual activity is, it does not depend whether one gets happiness, because at the end of the day, whatever one has to experience, one will experience. So this is tasyaiva hetu prayateta kovida na labhyate yad brahmatam upari adha tal labhyate dukkavad anyatra sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ramasa. So therefore it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that a really intelligent person, a really wise person, kovida, only does all the activities for tasyaiva hetu, for Krishna's satisfaction. Tasyaiva hetu prayateta kovida na labhyate yad brahmatam upari adha. If one is not doing the activities for satisfaction of Krishna, then brahmatam upari adha. One is constantly He rupe brahmanda brahmite kono bhagyavan jiv Guru Krishna kripa pray bhakti lata beach. So there's brahmanda brahmite, this going from one species to another species, from one planet to another planet. It is constantly happening. Srila Shankaracharya says, Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, ihe samsare baudhustare, kripaya pare pahi murare. So Sri Shankaracharya says in Bhaja Govindam that in this material world, material universe, there is constantly one is taking birth and constantly one is dying. Every time. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Every time one is taking one is being situated in the womb of one mother or another mother. Punarapi janani jatresh. Iha samsare bahudustare kripaya pare pahi murare. So Sri Shankaracharya says in Bhaja Govindam that, O Murare, O enemy of demon Mura, this ocean of birth and death is very difficult to cross. So please give your costless mercy so that we can cross over this ocean of birth and death. So this is the transcendental prayer of pure devotee of Krishna. But one of the conundrums here is that when one is engaged in pure devotional service, it does not matter where one is situated. Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bibhyati. Swarga apavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshana. As it is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, when one is totally surrendered onto Narayana, Sri Krishna, then one is not afraid of anything. Na kutaschana bibhyati. Yad bibheti swayam bhayam. Apanna samskritim ghoram yannama vivisho granan. Tata sadhyo vimuchyeta. Yad bibheti swayam bhayam. So this is the transcendental position of Krishna. That even the fear personified is afraid of Krishna. If you look at Sri Narasimhadev, Narasimhadev came from that pillar and fought with Hiranyakashipu and his innumerable soldiers and killed Hiranyakashipu. It shows the ferocious form of Krishna, that even the fear is afraid. Fear personified will be afraid of Narasimhadev. Its ferociousness. And who was able to pacify Narasimhadev? We see that after Narasimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, his ferociousness and his anger continued to exist. And it was not pacified by any of the, like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and even Lakshmi Devi. But when Prahlad Maharaj went before him, immediately Narasimhadev was pacified. This is the transcendental position of the pure devotees of Krishna. Nemam virinchi na bhavo nashri rapi anga samshraya pasada lebiro gopi yattat prapa vimuktidat. It is mentioned about Yashoda Maya that this is the transcendental position of pure devotees of Krishna, that they are engaged in such wonderful pastimes with Krishna, and that is the goal of human form of life. If one can get immersed oneself in those pastimes of the Lord, constantly, and what wonderful pastimes they are. They are totally transcendental. This is Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhuvi Dājana. As it is mentioned in Gopi Gita by the gopis, this is the Amrita, this is the nectar. When topics of Krishna is being discussed, that is nectar. And when one is hearing from the ears, Pravishtam Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham Dunoti Ashmalam Krishna Salilasya Yatha Sharat. So when one is hearing Pravishtam Karnarandrena Swanam Bhava Saroruham, so there's wonderful pastimes of Krishna and his devotees. When one is hearing that pastimes, when one is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, when the transcendental sound vibrations of the Maha Mantra is going through the ears and into our mind, one is in the spiritual realm immediately, at that moment. Immediately. So that is the power of Nama Chintamani Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Abhinatvat Nama Namina. So as it is mentioned in the scriptures, that the name of Krishna is like a touchstone. What does a touchstone do? Immediately one is in the spiritual world. When that mind is fully focused on Krishna, that's why Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that give your mind to me, become my devotee, mad bhakta. Madhyaji mam namaskuru. Offer your obeisances to me, offer your prayers to me. Mame vaishyasi yuktevam atmanam mat parayana. Mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. So this Manmana Bhava appears in two places in Bhagavad Gita, and in one place it says Mame Vaishyasi Yuktvayam Atmanam Mat Parayana. So when one is totally absorbed in the holy names of the Lord, Mame Vaishyasi Yuktvayam Atmanam Mat Parayana, one goes back home, back to Godhead. And then Krishna says Mame Vaishyasi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyosime. Again, Krishna says that surely you'll come to me, O Arjuna, and this is the truth. I'm telling you this truth because you're very dear to me. Pratijane priyosime. So this is the transcendental position of Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ Pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati. So Parīkṣit Maharaj, the Rishi, Rajarshi, and who is from the dynasty of the Pāṇḍūs, is asking the questions. Anupṛcchati. And this Pṛcchati and anupṛcchati has got extreme importance. This questioning is extremely important because when one is questioning, one is not only getting answers for oneself, but also one is getting answers for other living entities who are in a similar state of existence and who have these questions. So that is the reason why all these wonderful scriptures are in the form of questions and answers. So there is anupṛcchati. So this questioning is anukulyena Krishna anushilanam bhakti uttama. Anu. So there's pratikula, anikula, pratikula. So anupṛcchati means the questions are being asked with a frame of mind of understanding the root of what needs to be understood. Because questions could sometimes be asked superficially without trying to go into the root of what needs to be discussed. Or questions can be asked from a frame of mind of superiority complex or from arrogance. So that is not anupṛcchati. Anupṛcchati is tasmad gurum prapadyeta jignasu shreya uttamam. So anupṛcchati is when one is surrendering on to the guru and asking the questions with an inquisitive frame of mind in order to understand what is ultimately beneficial, shreya, and the questions which is helping one to cross over this modes of material nature, udgata tamam. So that is what is anupṛcchati. That is the real type of questions. And then ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam. So ānupūrvyeṇa is the beginning to the end. So this is we understand in this verse that Mahārāja Parīkṣit asked many questions in this particular chapter 8 of Canto 2. And we are in the 29th verse here. And this verse is summarizing that Mahārāja Parīkṣit asked many questions in the previous verses. So ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam. So now Shukadeva Goswami has heard all those questions, and he will be answering all those questions one by one. Ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam. From the beginning to the end. Ānupūrvyeṇa is from the beginning to the end. Tat is all those. Sarvam is fully. ākyātum upacakrame. To describe, he just prepared himself. ākyātum is to describe. Upacakrame is he just prepared himself. So this is Shukadeva Goswami preparing himself to answer all the questions that were asked by Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So this verse is conveying that. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Mahārāja Parīkṣit asked many questions, some of them very curiously to know things as they are, but it is not necessary for the master to answer them in the order of the disciples' inquiries, one after the other. But Shukadeva Goswami, experienced teacher that he was, answered all the questions in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession, and he answered all of them without exception. And this is the qualification of the guru. Shabde parecha nishnatam brahmani upasamashrayam. So guru transcends the all the karma kanda and jnana kanda. And guru is established in pure devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shabde parecha nishnatam. So, and brahmani upasamashrayam. So guru is totally surrendered onto Sri Krishna. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. Ahostam Rusyash Sarve Devarshi Naradas Tata Asito Devalo Vyaso Swayam Chaiva Bravishimi. So this is said by Arjuna when he sees the universal form of Krishna. Arjuna addresses Krishna and says that, "O Krishna, you are the supreme Brahman, Param Brahma. You are the supreme abode, Param Dhama. You are the purest, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. You are the supreme person. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Purusham, you are the original person. Because Aham Sarvasya Prabhava Matta Sarvam Pravartate, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, everything is coming from Krishna. The whole existence, Yasyaika Nishwasita Kalamathavalambya, Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanatha, Vishnur Mahan Saiharyasya Kala Vishesha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. As it is mentioned in Sri Brahma Samhita, that when Vishnu, Mahavishnu is exhaling, all the universes are coming out, unlimited universes. And then when he inhales, everything is going inside. So this is the transcendental position of, and this Mahavishnu is just a plenary portion of who? Govinda Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, Govinda. So this is the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham tesha avasthita. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, everything is resting on him. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham tesha avasthita. So Krishna is present in the form of his energy everywhere. But personally, he is in his own abode. Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuto. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Pratibhavit Abhistabhirya eva Nijarupataya Kalabhi. Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuto. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. So this is mentioned in Sri Brahma Samhita that he Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavit Abhistabhirya eva Nijarupataya Kalabhi. So this is the associates of the Lord are all Rasa Pratibhavit Abhis. So they are Raso Vaisaha. So Krishna is full of transcendental devotional mellows. So all the living entities who come in touch with Krishna can relish the transcendental mellow. So this is, and that relishment is Sukham Atyantikam Yattad Buddhigrahyam Atindriyam Veti Yatrana Chaivayam Sthitas Chalati Tatvata. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that the real bliss is totally independent of all the sensory experiences. Sukham Atyantikam Yattad Buddhigrahyam Atindriyam. Atindriyam. So it transcends all the sensual happiness. The sensual happiness is based on temporary combination of the senses coming in touch with the sense objects. Yehi sansparshaja bhoga dukkayona yavate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that one of the things about the happiness of sense coming in touch with the sense objects is that it is, first of all, it is temporary. And the second thing about that is it has got a beginning and an end. So as long as the senses are in touch with the sense objects, I will experience some kind of happiness. When the senses get detached from the sense objects, I experience distress because it has got detached. But another thing is, the more one engages in the sensual happiness, the less it gives the returns. So the example given is, if one wants to enjoy some nice dish, one can have it and one can keep on eating it, but at certain point one will feel that I had enough. Even though it might be one's favorite dish, but at a certain point of time one will say that I had enough. And so this is all the limitations of the sense happiness that comes from the senses. But what is the atindriyam? What is the happiness that is totally transcends the happiness coming from the senses? And that happiness is buddhi grahyam. It is taken through the intelligence, atindriyam. So this is ramante yoginaha anante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padena shav param brahma abhidiyate. That is, when one experiences unlimited happiness, which is totally not dependent on the material mind, the material senses. So that is ramante yoginaha anante. So real yogis are constantly in that state of bliss. And what is that bliss? That is satya anande. That is a real bliss. Chidatmani. And it is coming from one's original eternal self. Which is never detached from Krishna. It is always attached to Krishna, our original self. And that's why it is Satyananda. It is real happiness. Chidatmani. Iti Rama Padenasho Param Brahma Abhidiyate. Therefore, the Param Brahma, the Supreme Brahman, who is Paramatma, who is the Supreme Atman, who is the Atma of the Atma. So, the real life of the eternal life, that is Krishna. So, when one goes back to surrendering onto Krishna, immediately there is unlimited happiness, which is totally independent of any kind of mental or bodily so-called fleeting happiness that comes. So this happiness is bliss, pure bliss, which is totally independent of all mental, physical, and sensual experiences. It is transcendental, transcends everything. And that is achieved when one discusses this topic, which is Yadyat Parīkṣit ṛṣabhaḥ pāṇḍūnām anupṛcchati ānupūrvyeṇa tat sarvam ākyātum upacakrame. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parīkṣit had inquired from him. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the best in the dynasty of the Pāṇḍūs, and thus he was able to ask the right questions from the right person. So that I would like to conclude the discussion. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Utale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Krishna Matarastu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.